My wife said our daughter needed her real father. So I left for Japan, then everything collapsed. Have you ever been told, without shouting, without anger, that you don't really belong in your own family? Not fired, not divorced, just quietly replaced. Because that's what happened to me. My wife looked at me across our kitchen table one Tuesday night and said she needs her real father now. No pause, no apology, just that. At first, I thought she meant a visit, a phone call, a weekend. So I asked carefully, what does that mean for us? She sighed, like I was slow, like I was asking something obvious. It means she should spend more time with him, she said. And if that's a problem for you, maybe you should think about your future. I laughed, a short, broken laugh. I had been there every day, packed lunches, science projects, late-night fevers, broken bikes, broken hearts. But suddenly, I wasn't her father anymore. I was just a man in the way. Our daughter was in the living room, humming to herself while drawing. She didn't hear any of this, and that somehow made it worse. That night, I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I went to the garage and sat in my truck for almost an hour. When I came back inside, I opened my laptop. There was an old email sitting there, one I'd ignored 3 times already. A job offer. Japan. Better pay. Long contract. Clean break. I'd said no every time because of family. That night, I said yes. I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving space, letting things cool down. I told myself I'd come back. The flight to Japan was quiet. Too quiet. I watched the clouds drift past a window and wondered when my life had turned into something I no longer recognized. Japan was efficient, polite, orderly. Everything made sense there, except me. I lived in a small apartment, worked long hours, ate alone most nights, and every evening I checked my phone. No messages. I texted my daughter first. Hey, kiddo, how's school? Nothing. A few days later, I tried again. I miss you. Hope you're okay. Still nothing. I told myself she was busy. Kids forget sometimes. But the silence felt heavy. Then the guilt started, the kind that wakes you up at 3 a.m., the kind that whispers, you left? But that wasn't the worst part. One night, scrolling without thinking, I saw a photo. My wife, my daughter, her ex-husband, standing in front of the cabin, snow everywhere, big smiles, a perfect picture, except my daughter. Her smile looked wrong, too tight, like she was trying to please someone. My stomach dropped. 2 days later, everything collapsed. A co-worker pulled me aside and said, "Hey, is everything okay back home?" He showed me his phone, a public legal notice, divorce filing, reason, abandonment. I stared at the screen. She was saying I walked out, that I chose another life, that I left my daughter behind. That's when the anger hit. Not loud, not explosive. Cold, clear. I booked a flight home that same night. When I landed back in the U.S., the air felt heavier, familiar, unforgiving. I didn't go home. I stayed in a small rented room across town, plain bed, plain walls, somewhere to think. The next morning, I drove past my old house. Lights on, wreath still on the door. It looked normal, like I had never existed. I started asking questions at the bank, at the grocery store, places where people talk without realizing it. And everywhere I went, I heard the same story, that I ran away, that I chose money, that my daughter was abandoned. Then came the call that broke me. The school counselor. "She's confused," she said softly. "She thinks you didn't want to be her dad anymore." I sat down hard. "That's not true," I said. "I know," she replied, "but she doesn't." That was the moment everything became clear. This wasn't about my marriage anymore. This was about my child. I hired a lawyer, gathered messages, emails, timelines, proof. I stayed quiet. Then came the court date. My wife walked in confident, smiling, until she saw me. Her smile disappeared. The judge listened, asked questions, reviewed everything. Slowly, the story unraveled. Blocked messages, false claims, manipulation. The room went silent. The ruling was clear. Shared custody. No more lies. No more control. Later that day, I saw my daughter. She ran to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. Her voice shook when she said, "I thought you didn't want me." I laughed and cried at the same time, held her tighter than I ever had. "I never stopped choosing you," I said. Some people think walking away means giving up. Sometimes it's the only way the truth comes out. And what happened after the court ruling, how my wife reacted, and how rebuilding really began. That's where the story gets even harder. I thought winning in court would fix everything. I was wrong, because the paperwork ended the lies, but it didn't heal the damage. The first night my daughter stayed with me, she barely spoke. She sat on the edge of the bed in the small guest room I prepared. Same nightlight she used to have, same blanket pattern. She nodded when I asked if she was okay, but she didn't smile. At bedtime, she asked quietly, "You're not going back to Japan, right?" That question hit harder than anything the judge had said. I told her the truth. "I don't know yet, but I'm not leaving you." She nodded again, then whispered, "Okay," and turned toward the wall. I stood there long after she fell asleep, watching her breathe, realizing how close I'd come to losing her without even knowing it. The next few weeks were awkward, polite, careful. She acted like a guest, asking permission for things she never used to, apologizing too much. Once I burned dinner. She laughed, then stopped herself, like laughing might get her in trouble. That's when I knew this wasn't just about me being gone. Something had been said, repeated, pressed into her mind. I didn't ask questions right away. I waited. One evening, while we were doing homework at the kitchen table, she finally said it. "Mom said you left because I wasn't really yours." I felt my chest tighten. I kept my voice calm. "Is that what you believe?" She shrugged. I didn't know. So I told her the story. Not the angry version. Not the legal one. The real one. I told her how scared I was, how confused, how I thought giving space would protect everyone, and how leaving was the biggest mistake of my life. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "You're my dad," she said. "You always were." I laughed, a soft, shaky laugh, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But my wife didn't take the court decision quietly. The messages started. Cold ones at first, then angry, then desperate. She blamed me for everything, the ruling, the embarrassment, the loss of control. She told our daughter things she shouldn't have, adult things, ugly things. The judge warned her. She didn't listen. One night, my daughter came home crying. She said her mom told her I was trying to take her away forever. That was the moment I stopped being patient. I went back to court. This time, the judge didn't hesitate. Supervised visits, mandatory counseling. The courtroom felt heavy, but fair. My wife looked at me like I had betrayed her. I realized then something important. She wasn't angry because she lost me. She was angry because she lost control. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm. School mornings, packed lunches, quiet drives. We laughed more, not the forced kind, the real kind. One Saturday, we planted tomatoes in the backyard. She got dirt all over her face and said, "I'm bad at this." I said, "So am I?" She smiled, really smiled. Still, the past didn't disappear. Some nights, she had nightmares. Some days, she clung to me like I might vanish again. I didn't push her away. I stayed. Months later, I received another email from Japan. They wanted me back. Same position. More money. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Some opportunities cost too much. I took a job closer to home. Less pay, more time. And one evening, while watching an old movie together, my daughter leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm home." But the story doesn't end there, because rebuilding trust takes time, and forgiveness doesn't come all at once. And my wife, she wasn't done yet. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened when she tried one last time to rewrite the story, and how my daughter finally spoke up in a way none of us expected. The next morning came quietly, the way mornings on the farm always did. No alarms, no rushing, just pale light slipping through the curtains and the low sound of wind moving across fields I had known longer than most people in my life. I made coffee the way my wife used to, 2 scoops even though there was only me now. Old habits don't die easy. I carried the mug out onto the porch and sat down, listening. Somewhere a tractor started up on a neighboring property. A dog barked once, then went quiet. Life kept going. It always does, even when your heart feels like it's standing still. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed. Emily's name. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Dad," she said, her voice tired, raw. "Ryan is angry. He says you embarrass him." I took a slow sip of coffee. "I didn't embarrass him," I replied. "I just didn't disappear." Silence hung between us. Then she sighed, a long exhale that sounded like she'd been holding her breath for years. "I didn't know he was going to do that," she admitted. "Not like that." I closed my eyes. That hurt less than the night before, but it still hurt. "I know," I said, "and that's why I left. Weddings aren't the place for ultimatums." She sniffed. I could picture her sitting somewhere unfamiliar, probably a hotel room, makeup washed off, dress hanging uselessly on a chair. "He keeps saying the farm is inefficient," she continued, "that it could be sold, invested, turned into something bigger." Bigger. I let out a quiet laugh, not bitter, just tired. "Ha ha ha," I thought, "bigger than a life. This land raised you," I said. "It buried your mother. It kept food on our table when times were thin. Some things don't need to be bigger. They just need to be honored." She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was smaller. "I miss Mom." My throat tightened. "Me too," I said. That was enough to break something open between us. She started crying, not holding back now. I let her. Sometimes that's the only thing you can give your children anymore, space to feel. Days passed. Ryan called once. I didn't answer. He sent a message full of sharp words about responsibility and legacy and doing what was best for Emily. I deleted it. Instead, I went on living. I fed the animals. I fixed a broken fence. I walked the fields in the evenings and talked to my wife like she was still beside me, telling her about the wedding, about how our daughter had looked beautiful and scared all at once. "Aw," she would have said, "poor thing." A week later, a car pulled into the drive. Emily stepped out alone. No Ryan. She stood there for a moment, uncertain, then walked toward me. I didn't move. When she reached me, she wrapped her arms around my waist the way she used to when she was little, burying her face in my shirt. I held her, feeling her shoulders shake. "I didn't choose you," she whispered. "I should have." I rested my chin on her head. "You don't choose people," I said softly. "You choose actions. And you're here now." We went inside. We sat at the same kitchen table, where I had cried days before. She looked around, really looked like she was seeing it all for the first time. "He wants me to convince you," she said eventually, "to sign everything over." I nodded. "And what do you want?" She swallowed. "I want my dad. I want my home to still exist when I bring my kids here someday." Kids. That word warmed me more than the coffee ever could. I reached into my pocket and placed the keys on the table between us. They clinked softly. She stared at them, eyes wide. "I'm not giving them to Ryan," I said, "but I'm not locking you out either." She frowned. "What does that mean?" I smiled just a little. "It means the farm stays mine while I'm alive. It means you're welcome here always. And one day, if you want it, truly want it, not as an asset but as a responsibility, then we'll talk." Tears rolled down her cheeks again, but this time she smiled through them. "Thank you," she whispered. She stood, walked around the table, and hugged me. I held her tight, feeling something thaw inside my chest. That night after she left, I stood on the porch again, keys back in my pocket, lighter somehow. I realized then that leaving the wedding wasn't about walking away from my family. It was about standing still long enough to be seen. Sometimes, choosing yourself is the only way others learn how to choose you too. And if they don't, well, the land would still be here, waiting, just like it always had.